fellow named Jake, at least I assume that's his name, he asked me a question about the Welsh language. Okay, it was more of an epic paragraph. Epic. But within this paragraph, there was a good question. Here. He says, all the way down here, why are there declined / conjugated prepositions? Where did they come from? Do they, if you are a Welsh speaker or native, allow something to be done in speech that we miss in English? Fascinating question, Jake. My name is Benjamin, and today I'm going to answer that question for you. First of all, let's compare French, English, and German to Welsh so you know a bit what we're talking about. In Welsh, arose iddi, gave I the duck to her. In English, I gave the duck to her. The pronoun and the preposition are in the same position in English as they are in Welsh, but in English you could shift it around in certain circumstances. In German, ich habe ihr die Ente gegeben. I have her the duck given. And in French, je lui ai donné le canard. I at her have given the duck. This lui in French is tricky. It looks like what is going on in Welsh, but it is not the same thing. Don't be fooled. In French, lui is a standalone pronoun, her or him, that suggests direction in this case, whilst in Welsh, the direction and the pronoun it leads into fuse. So if I gave the duck to a man instead of a woman, French and Welsh say it in different ways. In Welsh, roesir hwyaden iddo. You notice that? It's not iddi, it's iddo. So in French, it's the same. Je lui ai donné le canard. It can be her or him. You can see that the Welsh changes to express a male form. French does not. Welsh gives you context that French has to just infer. What Welsh is doing here is a conjugation of the word linking the noun, duck, and the pronoun him. Now, German is a beautifully complex language, to say the least. It's rich in how it uses adverbs, which might lead you to think that it's doing sort of what Welsh does. But don't let that fool you. German does cool things, but this is not one of them. It does not do this. Have a look. I strongly believe in it, or I firmly believe in it. In Welsh, Credain goriendi. Credain gorievendi. In German, Ich glaube fest daran. You can think of daran in German as sort of like the English therein, darin. It's not exactly the same, but it's almost the same thing in German. But Welsh is in her. Oh, that could be a bit impolite. Maybe we should move on. Jake in his question asked about conjugated and declined prepositions. Now, declined prepositions require a case system, which Welsh does not have, so it does not have declined prepositions. The Romanian language, with its case system, does have declined prepositions, which we do not have time to get into. As I noted in my Indo-European languages video, and my What Nobody Tells You About Celtic Languages video, I'll put links down below, Celtic, along with Italic, broke off the Indo-European language in the West, forming their own branches. The Celtic-speaking peoples had a common language, which spread along riverways as they became the dominant group by the time of the Hallstatt culture around 3,000 years ago. Out of this age, the history of the Celts who moved into Britain, and all of their descendants today, conjugate prepositions. What this tells us is that the process of apocope, which is the process of losing the final consonant in words, took place in Celtic before Irish and British Celtic were fully separate languages. This happened because Celtic had a case system with mild agglutinization that was breaking down and becoming more of a fusional language, meaning that like French and Hebrew, you conjugate verbs with separate slots that you put pronouns and adverbs like very, always, and after into, with both linked to other words using prepositions. However, Welsh and Hebrew were by this point both VSO languages. However, British Celtic and Hebrew were at this point both VSO languages, verb, subject, object, with adverbs and pronouns able to float around and be in whatever order, between or after, however you want to shape your sentence. This word order gradually favors putting prepositions and pronouns together at the end of a sentence, so that if one asks you to repeat yourself, all you have to do is say the end of your sentence again. On he, on her, changed over time, arni. And over time in both Irish and British Celtic, these two fused together because the case system of the Old Celtic language, which would have had even more ending on the ends of the sentences due to agglutinization, that system broke down and it became arni, with the shift of the emphasis, and admi, for me, became imi. Now there's not enough evidence left for us to say or reconstruct British Celtic fully, but what we know is the suffix system this was born out of has long been lost, and was gone long before British Celtic languages were written down, so we don't know the exact process, but what it tells us is this forming of prepositions that conjugate on the end of sentences happened, or at least began to happen, before British and Irish split. We don't know the exact process, but VSO word order, which is one form that allows this, is actually quite rare in the world, and I did not know this was rare when I chose another language to learn, Hebrew. So when I, as a Welsh speaker, began learning Hebrew, I thought, oh, this must be common. A lot of languages across the world must conjugate prepositions. No. It's not common across the world. This is actually not very common, and these are the languages that do this. As for the last part of Jake's question, do these conjugated prepositions allow you to do things in Welsh that you cannot do in English? Yes-ish, but it's subtle. It allows conversation to move faster, because we don't have to confirm who or what by actually wasting time to repeat ourselves and say who or what. For example, museum, mkieddfa, a long word, is feminine, but hospital, ysbyty, is masculine, and Francod, French people, is plural. So if you have an hour-long conversation, which has a story in it where each of these three are central to what you're saying, and you say each of these words in the first sentence, in theory at least, you don't have to repeat mkieddfa, museum, ysbyty, hospital, or Francod, French people, for the next hour of your conversation. Just one example, with all three of them in it. Dwedais i yn ddo narodhon ni hebddyn nhw ynddi. I said in the hospital, in him, that we were not with plural, the French, in the museum, her, feminine. Compress the time you could save over an hour-long conversation, not having to refer to things again, and you could have time to go put the clothes in the wash while the people speaking English are still telling the same story. It avoids wasting time mentioning things that we've already discussed. It's efficient. And the part of me with, well, my grandmother's German ancestry, I like efficiency. So Welsh ticks that box. There are multiple people in a family, rongoni, between us. A sale is masculine, drwyddo kodairarion, so through him masculine. I will raise the money for you, respectful older. You don't have to mention the sale or the respected older person. On whose behalf are we talking? Drosti. On her behalf we're talking. Do you see? Amdani. About Rebecca, female, not Adam, male. You never have to mention her name. Eisha tro arno. Eisha tro arno. Do you want to walk on him? Bryn, hill, is masculine. So maybe you're talking about the hill that you and I walked on yesterday, and we're just picking up the conversation that we ended 16 hours ago, and we know that simply by the conjugated pronoun. You might say Benjamin, but what if you're talking about two females? How do you distinguish between them with just pronouns? We have that covered. In Welsh, we can say he for she, her, and hithai for also she, or that she but not that she, hithai and he. And I don't have time to go into that, but that's another video maybe if you'd like, but we got that covered so that you don't even have to mention the woman. You know, if there's two women sitting in a pub, you can speak the same language that they're speaking in Welsh and use those pronouns, and they'll never even know that you're talking about them. Very useful. But that is another video. Isn't repeating yourself annoying? Isn't repeating yourself annoying? Isn't repeating yourself annoying? You have to repeat yourself far less in Welsh. I like it. So if you're in a pub and 35 minutes after your sister drove your car home, your friend looks at you at your pint and says, "Mwy o honno heb thi?" You can infer just from context. He's saying more of him, beer is masculine, heb thi, without her, the woman who drove the car home. It's efficient. You can infer things. Well, in French you can infer things as well, but this goes an extra layer. You can add context, assumed context. So you can refer back to a conversation that you had yesterday, merely using the attached pronouns on the prepositions. Eisiau tro arno. You could be talking about the bridge that you walked over yesterday, or the hill. The hill is masculine. Eisiau tro arni, the bridge is feminine. You see, it's efficient, and it's subtle. If you have a history of talking about a specific object, you don't have to refer directly back to it. You can just attach it through the pronoun on the end of the sentence. What conjugating the pronoun does this way on the end of prepositions is it enables you to build a kind of familiarity when you're speaking with someone you already know over time around certain objects. It's not intended, it's just that the shape of the Welsh language encourages these more efficient ways of harking back to former conversations. For example, bwyty is masculine, it's the restaurant, or it's a restaurant. You might have a history with a friend that over long-term conversations, you refer to the bwyty, the restaurant, in a certain way. There's more than one restaurant, but restaurants are masculine. So you might say, "Dyn ni'n mynd iddo." That nice roast lamb restaurant is o. That's a nice restaurant. Dyn ni'n mynd iddo. But that filthy Chinese restaurant, dyn ni'n mynd iddo. Dyn ni'n mynd iddo. It's almost tonal that it develops in a way, but it's not in any way like Chinese. However, what I'm saying is these endings allow you to build context, subconsciously even over time. English doesn't encourage that. You can do it in English, but the structure of the English language is not conducive to doing that. In Welsh, situations of assumed context are not something you have to force. Because of the shape of the Welsh language and these conjugated prepositions, it just happens. It flows. Well, Jake, I hope that answers your question. And if you like that, buy me a copy. Diolch yn fawr am wylio, and we will see you in the next episode.